Okay, so we're ready to start? I think so. Just share this. Okay, thank you for being here. I think you finished all your top modules now, so well done. So there's less of the worry. Well, still probably have submission to do, I imagine. But you know, beyond that is working on something that you be more familiar with, and probably working at your own pace. And so that would be great going forward. Usually people say that's the bit that they enjoy the most about doing a master's degree. So what I'll talk to you about today is some key dates, a reminder of how this AM1 is assessed. Primarily, I'll talk about AM1 today. Project selection template, and I'll give you some examples of previous demonstrations as well. So if at any point you have a question, please just ask.
Are you going to share the examples with us?
I will share this. They're anonymized, so it's not a problem. Some of the key dates. The gateway opens on February 16th. But we need a little bit of time to look at your project template submission. So that's just a template I'll circulate later. But detailed specifics about the project, we need to get a form approved to the apprenticeship department. So I'll ask you to fill that form roughly about a week before the gateway opens. And then the official start for the endpoint assessment is the 4th of April, with the submission for AM1 being the 26th of July. Then you have a separate date for the AM2, the executive summary. And then, you know, the endpoint assessment, the oral presentations and discussion are scheduled for the 2nd of September. We can only really do 2 of you, or maybe 4 of you if we do 2, you know, we have 2 independent assessors. So maybe a maximum of 4 every day. So chances are you won't be exactly the 2nd, might be the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. So what we ask you to please don't book any leave around these dates. So you have a chance to come and do your oral assessments. This will be on site at Cranfield. And obviously you will be receiving an invite and the formals later on. So a little bit of a reminder of the course itself. So you're here for a level 7 apprenticeship. You're also going to get as a result of this an MSc as well. So for that reason, you will be assessed twice with 1 report. So one will be for the MSc. So in this instance, you will be assessed or marked by 2 academics, similar to the group project, what you already have been assessed. And then you 2 independent assessors will be exclusively marking your knowledge, skills, and behaviors, your attainment of those. So in total, there are 37, and for AM1, it will be 19. So, as I said, I'm just going to focus on number 1, AM1 project report. We in the past misused the name for this thesis, but we've been corrected. But it's not a thesis; it's a project report. So that's the correct language for it. So the purpose of it is to demonstrate improvement to an existing service, and it will include research, data, analysis, communications. It's 8,000 words, plus minus 10%. The point of this, or the most important statement with regards what this is that you can find on the apprenticeship standard, is to assess the apprentice's ability to generate a viable service improvement proposal. Okay. So some of you already been asking, thank you very much for doing so, about what, been circulating a few of your ideas as to how this could, or what projects you have in mind for this. So that's great. If someone needs help, you want to have a chat, let me know. We can also arrange for that individually. So as I mentioned before, the report is marked twice, and on one side you have the ILOs, the enter for the start of each module. You would have heard the intended outcomes of each of these modules. Similar to that, there are specific ILOs for an MSc thesis, and on the other hand, you'll be also assessed by the independent assessors, and exclusively the KSBs, which are 19 of this. So the idea of this image is to just remind you that it's a sole document and that's assessed in two different ways, for the two different degrees that you guys will be completing. So just a reminder of the ILOs of an MSc thesis. Again, very similar to a group project you've done so far. Identify a research question, develop project objectives, justify a methodology, then execute a work program, and then do the discussion, etc. So this is communicate the findings in the form of a thesis. This is what is expected of you in terms of completion of the MSc thesis. Because you've done a group project before, you will find a lot of similarities to this. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, just one from me. When you submit the project proposal, is that when you get assigned the supervisor?
Yes. I would say that if your project, you think that if during the top modules you found someone, perhaps some synergies, or maybe a lecturer that you thought has the right type of profile for your project, do suggest. I can't guarantee I will allocate them to you, but I will try. Okay. So during
yeah, quick one. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, Alexia. I was just going to ask. So here it says number 1, identify a research question.
Yeah.
But from what you said earlier, the full idea is it needs to be an improvement. So
Yeah.
do you have to identify a research question around an improvement, or should it be focused on the improvement is going to be this?
You could do both in the sense that your improvement idea will be the research question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
What you hear me later say is that don't choose a researchy or a research type of question project, and by that I mean don't take a generic research question like what would be the psychology through life, or what's the effect of this and that. Rather make it narrow it down to something more tangible. So Alexia, did I answer your question?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, you did. And to Scotty's one, yeah, thanks.
All right. So the KSBs, these are on the standard. And this is just a paste from the standard to illustrate or remind us of what these are. And obviously there are too many to be going one by one, but you will find here that there is a combination of what employers, and this standard was put together by a group of employers, which included MOD, Rolls-Royce, BA Systems, and a few others. And the standard captures all what they thought people like yourselves will be able to deliver. So when you deliver a larger project at work, obviously you will be looking at the cost benefit, the funding. You ensure that there is a supply chain for whatever you want to implement, that you look at the risks, that you manage the data and able to do some projections, that you're able to implement the project, and all the things like capture stakeholder requirements, etc. So this is the kind of thing that industrialists I put together the standard looking at skills that people doing this degree would have, and it actually is reflected on this. So if you went carefully and look at this one by one, you will find that it's a lot of what I've just mentioned is to do with data, with logistics, data management, and the ability to demonstrate those as a skill as well. So hopefully you had a chance to look at this before. And if you do, do you have any concerns for any of this?
Yes.
Go on.
When it comes to using for Internet of Things approach to things and Industry
Yeah.
4.0,
Yeah.
what happens if the sector we're working in, for example, doesn't really utilize the Internet of Things approach in Industry 4.0 due to lack of funding? It's quite hard for us to theoretically we talk about how to implement it and how we would in an ideal world, but how to practically implement something we haven't got funding for is going to be pretty hard to justify, isn't it? We've got no data from it because we don't use it as much as we should. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Internet of Things is just a side of it. Yeah, so for example, you know your project could be doing data acquisition of other things. So in this instance, you're talking about K15, I believe, because that's the one that I can read. It says Internet of Things. It's just one side of it. You could do other things, and you could demonstrate K15 in different ways. It doesn't need to be Internet of Things. It could be, for example, data that you currently use for monitoring services, or data that you use to, or data that your group at MOD captures about maintenance. So in this instance, you know, what is it that MOD captures, how you can change that to improve the situation, etc. So, yeah.
Oh, so would it be right in suggesting then we could use, say, for example, because I won't go into too much of the commercial specifics, but I'm on a shipbuild project. The first ship's about to come out, and there'll be a course of 8 ships following, approximately 18 months between each other.
Yeah.
Could I say, for example, and say, oh, we will capture supplier data, for example, and equipment performance once the first ship is in service to affect the following ships being built, for example. So it's not directly Internet of Things, but it's still data capture, isn't it?
It is data capture, and demonstrating knowledge of data capture. Yeah, it's what you just said. For example, you would say, where that data is coming from. It comes from a system called such and such. It captures data every month or every hour or every minute. The data typically will be, I don't know, you know, a Excel type of CSV type of file with 1,000 columns and, you know, maybe rows, however many. By describing the data that you use and how it's captured, then you're demonstrating the knowledge on data capture methods. It doesn't need to be specifically about Internet of Things. It could be about inspection, maintenance, you know, whatever is. And the key here is you being able to describe or specify the need for the data that you like to capture for your solution.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've gone through that, but again, as I said, just to emphasize, it's if you are asked at work to deliver a project that, you know, covers or goes over all the departments, you certainly be asked about, you know, a larger project. You'll be asked about funding and cost, etc. So think about this as an opportunity to demonstrate how you can, you know, handle a larger project, looking at all these aspects of its delivery. So this is some of the stuff that I picked up from previous EPAs. So I made project evidence in Red Hat because that is what the independent assessors have been telling me. So they like to see when they're marking, and I'll show you later what they use to mark. But they're looking for evidence. So when you talk about a solution, because this is something you want to improve, then it's ideal if you can provide a baseline. So what was the situation? What have I done to improve the situation? So if you've got data from how things were before versus how you intend this to work better, that'll be great. And as much as you can provide, if you do say you implemented this, or your intention is to develop this system, then do provide evidence of it, which can be, it could be if you're working on software, you can take some screenshots of what is it that you are actually implementing that's better. You can look at the situation as it was before, either in terms of data or perhaps another screenshot of systems that you improved, etc. So we will circulate a form like this, sharing in there, and ask you, as we said before, to submit just before the gateway opens, so we can then start with your AM1 as soon as the gateway closes. Okay, so the form has a number of headings that you need to fill, and these are some of them that I find that some people struggle with. So I just decided to put a few points in there just to maybe help you along to do this better the first time. So aim, we're looking for a solution to a problem. And as an aim, as you've done, a group project will be similar, as I said before, a singular high-level statement. What is it that you want to improve? And we would expect the conclusions to respond to the aim of the project. And alongside the aim, you will distill for the achievement of the aim a number of objectives, and we recommend you use no more than 5. But that would be how you would structure the objectives. You'll break down the aim into a number of smaller outcomes, and that essentially will be the aim and objectives of your project and how you describe them in your report. In terms of the research approach or methodology, initially we will ask you to detail these at a higher level, essentially a roadmap of what you intend to do to correct the problem or improve the situation. It just needs to have a logical flow. Some people at the very early stages, high level part of this will use a simple block diagram, and that works, because that explains and tells the reader what is it that you intend to do. Then other bits that we like to provide a little bit of more detail is in the data and analysis. Again, like I said before, describe the type of data you will be using, where the data comes from, etc. And in terms of data analysis, what data analysis tools you do have at your disposal. It might be that you do have a particular application at work that helps you do the analysis, describe that. What methods you will be using to then infer the benefits, or how you can demonstrate that the solution actually is an improvement. So it could be a variety of analysis tools. It could be that you should just graphs. It could be models. A number of things that people have tried different ways to look at the data and draw some conclusions from the data. So it might be used. You might use Pareto analysis. I don't know, a number of techniques that you could use for that. Obviously, make sure the company agrees with the use of data. And there is one very important part that is being highlighted by the assessors, and that is having a system or product of interest for the purposes of delivering the KSPs. So like I said before, if you don't try to use a very broad title or aim for your project, rather try to focus onto something that you you can use as a focal point for your solutions and the demonstration of your KSBs. Again, that gives you the ability to perhaps have more tangible solutions that you can demonstrate easier. We had people that went ahead and, for example, took a project which title was the benefits of emotional intelligence, which I don't recommend you do, because again, it doesn't have a really focal point, and it's a very much a research question in the sense that it's addressing something, it's not very tangible. So rather pick something that you can work with. It could be a type of submarine or aircraft or engine or something like that. That will probably be easier to provide more tangible solutions. Right. Any questions so far? Again?
No, not from me.
Okay.
Could it be a proposed solution, or do you actually have to see the solution realized?
That's an interesting and very good question, Lee. We do have, there is a couple of skills as S7 and S8, which are, let me bring you back to that. So there is service design and service delivery. So this means that is beyond a proposed solution. You've got to try and demonstrate how that solution will be designed in S7. So that may be a flow diagrams or something like that. Perhaps some validation of requirements, like it states in there. But then there is also S8. And so the people that wrote this were actually expecting you to go ahead and already provide delivery metrics and so on. So it's very hard to do this in 4 months, especially a service delivery where you actually measuring the delivery of your project.
Because I was looking at doing something along the lines of asset health index. So I can pull all the data together and I can say what we're going to monitor and how we're going to monitor it. But then in 4 months, I wouldn't know the dilapidation state of the hardware, because that could take years to kind of come through. But if we don't start monitoring it, then we'll never know.
A suggestion might be to, if you're in a position to, rather than widely deploy this new idea, take one of your products, one of your lines of assets, and try it there. Take the approach that you will use a use case for this to demonstrate the principles of, and that might simplify the need for the service delivery skill.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So where was I? Okay. So at some point, as I said, we will receive from you the submission form, and then we probably need to have a couple of goes on making sure that you capture in the form the requirements of the AM1. And then at some point, like we've discussed before, we want to locate a supervisor for you and kick off the project. And for this, like I said, it will be probably around April when you start your project. Okay, but it's great that we're talking about it now. It gives a little bit more room to work out any issues. So like I mentioned before, this is a combination of marks from 2 sides. So you expect to get 100% from your report. The minimum mark is 50%. The marking criteria for a thesis, you're very familiar with it already. So there's a numerical mark for this. And for the side of the apprenticeship, you either pass with distinction, or fail. And if someone fails, all it means is either they do a reseed, where they just come back in a few months and correct whatever they failed. You see, if someone fails one KSB, all they need to do is correct that KSB. And the further implication is that the mark is so bad, the failure is so great that you're asked to reseed in the modules and so on. No one's ever gone to that stage yet. People have failed a few KSBs here and there. And what happens then is that they'd have to rework the report. So the marking of the report, in terms of the thesis, the ILOs, again, you'll be familiar with this, and this is the criteria that people use, or the assessors use, the lecturers that mark your reports use. So there is a criteria based on the introduction of the project, the methods and results, discussion and conclusions, and then we allocate a mark, a numerical mark based on the level of attainment. So it could be excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, poor, and very poor. And you can see here the text, the criteria for it. All of this will be available to you. It's no secret. And I can't guarantee it will be exactly the same words, but it will be very, very similar to this. Okay, so you know where you when you write your report, you can aim at certain place, to be at certain place. I'm just showing you this because the language of the KSBs on the standard uses verbs like create, evaluate, analyze, apply, understand. And there's a reason for it, is because the people that put together this standard were expecting higher cognitive levels or higher outputs from you in terms of each of the KSBs. So I just kind of tabulated those, but on the left. But obviously the easiest ones are at the bottom, and the harder ones are at the top. That's also in commas, inverted commas, obviously. It's not very difficult. But that is what the language implies. So if you all of a sudden find words like design or configuring, what I'm trying to tell you is that you probably are expected to develop the idea a bit further. So this is what the independent assessors will use for the assessment of your KSBs. So they literally have this, which is a tick box exercise. They do provide great feedback though. We know that we don't really share the feedback unless you fail, but they do provide great detail on your, because they really go into great depth to read your report and understand your solution. And you can see the knowledge, skills, and behavior on the left. And then the second column from the left is what you need to pass. So for example, you can read the first one, evaluate the position of the improvement project against life cycle of the duration and recovery. So if you describe what your solution is and why it's important to talk about obsolescence and recovery, etc., then you pass. But then if you go further, that's the nature of it. For each of these, there is a basic level to pass, and the further discussion that you provide in terms of solutions, maybe expand from one solution to two solutions, from one method to two methods, then you will be aspiring to distinction for each of these KSBs. And the standard specifies that provided that you pass with distinction at least 8 of the 19, then that assessment method AM1 will be passed with distinction. Overall, to pass with distinction the course, you will need to pass the 3 assessment methods with distinction, and each one of them has a criteria similar to this, where there's a minimum number of KSBs that need to be passed with distinction to be awarded a distinction. Again, this will be, it's already available to you on the standard because it's cut and paste, just adapted from the standard. But again, once we have a Canvas page for this, we will have a Canvas page for endpoint assessment. And this will also be there alongside this recording. And you will be able to, go and see how you will be assessed and whether you actually achieving what you intend to achieve. So I do recommend, I think your tutor probably will tell you, they'll give you some ideas as to if you really want to pass with distinction, they'll probably give you some ideas as to how to achieve that. And one of those might be that you tabulate how your project it is meeting this, in what sections, and with what ideas, with what arguments you're using to pass with distinction. So on the most recent one, there was 4 people that passed with distinction out of 6, out of 5 or 6 that submitted their endpoint assessment, which is the highest we ever had. Before that, only 1 person had passed with distinction. So all I'm trying to say to you that it's possible, but it does require you to set your mind to pass with distinction. If you just want to pass, then you just will pass. But if you set your objective to pass with distinction, that's entirely possible.
The pass distinction, this is separate to the actual grade you get for the report, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So you know, I don't think we've had this before, but you could be the individual with both the you could earn a graduation, a course director award by getting the highest mark across all elements of the course, and then still pass with distinction. They're different. They're different things, but you could. It's possible to achieve both as well. Yeah.
Yeah. The just go back to the marking criteria for the report. Sorry.
This one.
Yeah. So are they linked to tools? So like the things, for example, in like the methods and results and the discussions and conclusion, obviously they are going to be linked to the KSBs. Are they going to be looking for what the KSBs are looking for as well in your answer? Or are these going to be completely separate?
They're assessed differently. So the academics marking this particular part of it, they won't be looking for KSBs, and vice versa, the independent assessors, they won't be looking at this. However, there are certain elements that are sort of overlap in the 2 assessment methods. So it could be, for example, that your data management, your demonstration of data acquisition or data analysis approach is very much present in both, and you would be assessed with rather the same argument. You could achieve the both or satisfy both criteria. But yeah, but the important thing to note is that they're different. So we had people that have passed. I don't think we ever had anyone fail their thesis. So everybody's passed their thesis, even with a low mark, but they passed. And we had a number of people that failed 1 or 2 KSBs, or a small number of KSBs. So it's possible to pass one and fail the other.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So in summary, just needs to describe an improvement service proposal for a new service or product. It does have the structure of the thesis. Needs to be demonstrated knowledge, skills, and behaviors in the standard. 8,000 words plus appendices. and we suggest you use a make reference to the KSBs in the body of the text, a bit like when you would have used referencing in your reports, similar to that. We will provide you with a KSB tracker, so the assessor can go to the first appendix of your report and then look at the specific areas. If they can't find your KSBs, or if it's not clear for them where you demonstrated, then they can go back to this tracker and then find them. So there is a document, as I said, that will be available to you as well to use, and you will be expected to put on the first appendix. Here's some tips. Like I said before, plan, go ahead and look at the KSBs and do it by design as opposed to doing it later. I imagine that's the correct word to say. It's quite hard to write the report in one go and then force the KSB demonstrations into it. A lot of people have tried that, and it's really very hard work. It's probably better just to, from the start, be thinking about where you demonstrate those, or where you make a note of where you're demonstrating that. Like I said, they won't happen accidentally. So please try it. Make an effort to structure them into the report, weave them into the report as soon as you can. Yeah, signposting of the evidence. I'll show some examples in a minute. If you struggle, create mini scenarios. If all of a sudden your narrative doesn't take you into space so that you can demonstrate KSBs, provide an example, like I said before, of a particular asset or a particular situation at work where you could demonstrate those. So you create a little scenario within your report to enable you to have the space and the necessary elements on it to demonstrate the KSBs. There might be some that you can talk with some of KSB you're less familiar. Talk to people at the company. You might find that there is already some data or solution that could help you into the demonstration. Yeah, there's a few other tips in there as well when it comes to writing. So on to some good examples and some bad examples too. So here is a apprentice. See they're indicating even from the table of contents where the KSVs will be, and they make it a note as to which one it is. In this case, I use brackets to illustrate where they'll be, and along as well on the text in the main body of the text, as I said before, like if you were making a reference to a bit of text, you will be also making a reference to the KSBs where you think you're demonstrating it. It might be that you do it a couple of times during the text, and that is fine. So this is a good example of someone referencing where the KSBs are. They've done this in red color as well, just to be even more obvious as to where they think they're demonstrating the KSBs. This is an example of K13, which is requirement management. And you can look at the bit on the top is cut and paste from the standard, and the second column is what is a pass. And then the column on the right is the pass with distinction criteria. And you can look at what the student has done in this particular instance, where they've described they rank the requirements and they describe the requirements. And the third column is a description of potential conflicts and the impact. So you can see this is a very well thought of way of, and it's a very simple one because requirements is not that hard to. The effort is less cognitive. You have to go and talk to people, capture what they think the solution requirements will be. And then you might compare those versus the different stakeholders or different parts of the organization. So maybe you decide, for example, to implement a new bit of software, but that will obviously have some cost implications, but also will have some practical implications for the people that manage your software in your company or manage your data in your company. So this is the kind of thing we would expect you to elaborate on in the report, as a point to get a distinction, as opposed to just simply saying what is the requirements or what are the requirements for the solution. Okay, so it's a simple one, very well demonstrated. So this is about data, and this person was very detailed at specifying the type of data and capture method they were going to use. And in this instance was a less engineering type of data. This is more about surveying, but this is a very deep survey. And again, they were using different methods to do qualitative and quantitative research, citing the advantages and disadvantages and the service improvement application. Again, this is providing a deeper explanation for the data capturing method. Again, another one that passed with distinction. So this is an example of value analysis, and this actually got this distinction. This is very brief, very concise definition or demonstration for value analysis, and they very simply state what methods they were going to use for cost-benefit analysis. And it's a brief description and a brief critique of that method that gives him the ability to pass with distinction, this one. If I go too fast, please let me know. Again, another example of someone, this is a path, and someone was demonstrated one business case construction method. Again, relatively simple way of doing it. So this is a failure actually. So hopefully I've masked this enough. For people from MOD, this will probably recognize this is someone from MOD. And in this instance, they failed to demonstrate K15 because, well, they don't really, like the independent assessor says there, they don't really quantify the data in any way. So they talk about capturing data, but don't say how. And in addition to that, they sort of link a very large number of KSBs to a very generic statement. There is no evidence or there is no discussion of specifics about the data capture process or anything like that. So this is a bad example for that reason, because it doesn't really go into specifics, and it again and it allocates the demonstration to a number of KSBs which are not clearly not there. So there is another one that's called demonstrating S11, and this is technical issues, and it refers to issues with the research that you conduct. So there is an expectation. It's a bit like the kind of thing you will write in the report anyways when you talk about discussion as a limitation of the research. So you're expected to indicate the technical issues that you encounter while conducting your research and how you went about addressing those technical issues. So this is another way of doing it. Someone's employed a chart about it. And again, this is a good example of someone explaining the adoption, I think in this instance, of the training tool they were developing for their demonstration. This is a bad example of it. Well, there is again there's no evidence of evaluation. A very simple statement. What it says here is potential inhibiting factors identify and address. And then again, a very generic argument about it, but there isn't any in-depth or any particular description of the issues that they encounter. So, the evidence, like I said before, describe the situation, provide evidence, compare the baseline, how are things, how they improved with your solution. That's the key. So this is again a very quick demonstration of the two KSBs. What is a good way of doing it, and what is not a great way of doing it. So if you need a methodology, again, this is a good generic methodology approach. That's, as I said before, you can also use a block diagram that describes the key tasks or the key phases of this. This is a bit more detail presented in this instance. See, it describes what are the key tasks associated with each of the phases and what are the deliverables for each of these. But again, this is a or a good example of methodology presented in, typically this is chapter 3. And this is an idea where you can demonstrate your KSBs. Again, this is, they can be anywhere, it doesn't matter. But I think, given the nature of the projects, you could use almost every aspect or every chapter of the report to describe things. You can demonstrate KSBs, for example, of data knowledge, and obsolescence, right on the literature review, logistics, if that is what the project is about. And then in the methodology, you can, again, explore more about data. Then in third chapter, fourth chapter, fifth chapter, depending on the way you structure your report, you can talk about stakeholder requirements, value, obsolescence, etc. This is just a sort of way of mapping, which I thought a few years ago you could be used to demonstrate your KSBs. And the one thing I probably need to emphasize a bit is B5 at the bottom there, because that is leadership and influencing. So in this report, it's kind of very difficult to demonstrate your leadership and influencing, perhaps in certain projects where you lead the implementation of your idea, etc. If you write that in a way that is very clear that you took the leadership, then obviously that is very easy to pass. But if you find yourself in a situation where the report narrative doesn't lend you to very clearly demonstrate that you took the leadership and influencing, you can write. My suggestion will be to write a small paragraph towards the end of the discussion, or maybe after the conclusion, to explain in a reflective way what was your role during the demonstration of or the delivery of this project. And that way you enable yourself a little space in there to demonstrate your leadership and influence skills as well. So this is just a snapshot of the tracker, and as I said, we would expect you to tell the independent assessor where is that you're actually what page and what paragraph you're demonstrating, in addition to the little thing on brackets. And again, this is just to ensure that there are no omissions, and it's all very obvious. We're going to the end of this. I think we're approaching the end. I said before, I'm happy to talk to any of you if you have any concerns about your project, your ideas. We will make all these forms available on Canvas, and I'll probably circulate them anyway on the email. Okay, end of it. Does anyone have a question or any concern?
No, I think that was it from me. I'm guessing you're going to be sending this out along with the recording.
Yes, I will. And as I said before, there will be a Canvas page for this as well. So we're talking a bit earlier, and I'm happy to, it's a few of you that wanted to talk about this, and we've done it earlier than I usually do it. The Canvas page is not ready yet. It will be sometime next week, but all of this will be also there. I will circulate this by email and also on the Canvas page.
Well, just final thing from me. I'm having a NDA currently done by the legal team. So I'm obviously going to have to probably get my supervisor to sign that or be party to that. Is it possible if I submit the project proposal to have a supervisor signed earlier than actually starting it, or?
It doesn't matter much because the university signs on behalf of all of us.
Okay.
So it's not a personal NDA. It's an organizational one. So that would be fine. It might take a little time. So hopefully we can sort it out soon. But I've seen correspondence, and thank you for organizing this early. Is anyone think they need an NDA? Yeah, let's try and do this soon, because they do take a little while, because obviously your organizations have their own terms and conditions, and they're not always match against each other. There's always a little bit of comings and goings when it comes to the legal groups.
Yeah. Also, just final one from me. When will we get that presentation EPA date confirmed as when R1 is in September?
When is it? I think you probably get a firmer date by the time we go through the gateway.
So that's
which will be in
start of February. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Only because that's my 25th birthday week, so I was planning to be away, but I'm gonna have to do a bit of rearranging.
Yeah. Hopefully maybe that early, and we'll work around. Alicia, we as much as we like to see you on your birthday, probably we'll try and find a way around that.
Well, thank you. That's it from me.
Anyone else? Well,
A good question. Sorry, quick question. Now that you mentioned this NDA, do you usually have a problem with defence staff or employees with this type of stuff, Sidro? I'm thinking some things we deal with as
no,
as more commercially sensitive, isn't it?
We never had an NDA from MOD. We had a couple from Leonardo, I think, and that was it. Yeah, we don't. I think I mentioned this before. We would avoid anything that needs to be confidential, and in terms of the data that you want to write about, or the assets that you want to write about, particularly data you could discard your data. You could use a factor to hide real values, change the units, and that would be fine. But if your company feels that still beyond, in addition to that, they're not happy about it, not confident that your reports will never be published or publicly available. But if your company still worries about this, then we will need to go with an NDA. Yeah.
Okay. I'll try to pick something which isn't considered official sensitive. Fair enough.
Yeah. In the past.
I'll see guidance.
Yeah, in the past, I've seen people from MOD very worried about it, and then whoever is in charge of the apprenticeship at the MOD says, "Oh, don't worry, use this and that, or say this and say that," and it'll go. The concerns go very quickly.
Sounds about right, Isidro, to be honest.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending. happy to
Sure.
talk to people, if they wish, if they need to have an individual conversation, that's fine. And in fact, Scott, are you okay to have a few minutes after this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Have a good Christmas.
Cheers
If I
all.
don't see you.
Cheers all. All right.
Hi,
All
Sidro.
good.
How are you? You well?
I am well. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, we're getting there, thank you. So I know I've been harassing you with many ideas. I
That's
think
all right.
I'm just a bit apprehensive because at the end of February, I've got my honeymoon booked. So from the 22nd of February onwards, I'm going to be in the Maldives for a while. So
All right.
therefore, I'm trying to make sure I'm kind of good to go.
Okay.
So I think one of the ones I've sent you most recently is the idea of CAVs, civilian armored vehicles.
Mm.
So as they are just now, we've been buying them for my department, procure them, and we've been doing it for the last, I don't know, 12 years, for example. And they keep on buying like the typical procurement route of just buying whatever they can because they're quite hard to get hold of. So they'll just buy 10 at a time, and then they get used and they kind of get sold off eventually. We lose a lot of money with them. A lot of issues in regards to obsolescence, configuration management, because there's about 40 different variants we have. So all the ILS principles. And then what I'm looking at doing is, which just been recently brought up, that we could do, they're interested in doing it in a service delivery model. So therefore the contractor will own them, we will lease them. There's obviously issues with that as well, in regards to military modifications, etc. But it's an interesting one that seems like there's a lot of different aspects to discuss.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So far, so far I've heard is great.
So it's just it's hopefully an improvement, but like there are a lot of obviously financial impacts of is it value for money and etc. So if you're happy, I'm going to try and write down a plan of the different aspects to it, keep it kind of simple. I'll try and do a form and just kind of send it across and just tinker with it, and we'll see how we go on.
Yeah, that will be great. Also look at the KSB's criteria, and always bear that in mind. Like, when you even at this early when you're drafting this idea, look at them and make sure that you can deliver against those, right? So previously I told you the most concerning one I had from previous idea of yours was the ES7 and the AS8.
Yep.
I think what you describe, you probably have a chance to at least take one of these vehicles and say, for this one, I will try this.
Yeah.
And that would work. You during the report phase, you can say, I'm going to use one as an example and isolate that one and maybe apply whatever solutions you have in mind. And you at least will have a quick way of testing your ideas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the full procurement of we've got loads in service just now. So, and I've got all the data about the spares they use, etc., and how much maintenance they need.
Well, that's great.
The data I won't be able to get, obviously, is I've got rough costings of the new proposed contracts, but I mean, it takes years for if we are going to do the service delivery model, it would take years to implement, obviously, as you can appreciate.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That would just be kind of theoretical just now.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as, it would be an analysis, right? That professional analysis this is what you do is not going to be like child description, right? So you're going to have some figures of merit, some, I don't know, so you probably research some figures about it. And, it might be that I think one of the KSBs is about prediction. There is obviously some that are related to cost, and that I think that should be fine. But there is one that's associated with prediction, and you could predict cost if that there is, or you could predict cost. You could predict performance. It's a number of things you could predict, and amongst them it could be also cost or benefits.
So I've got Monte Carlo modeling already set up for this kind of thing, so that would align.
That would be great. Yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay, I think this is. Yeah, I think this is the way I'm going to go then, because I think it's what most of the modules are about, and it ticks a lot of boxes, and it's in my department, so it just seems like it's
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, I think what you just described is great. Sounds like it ticks a lot of boxes already.
Yeah.
And as I said, I think you should, to be honest with you should aim for distinction. So, grab the table there with the KSB's descriptions, every so often, just ask yourself, am I actually meeting the criteria here? And that would probably be okay.
Awesome. Okay, right. Thank you very much for your time. I feel really kind of positive about this. I'll get on and start writing some stuff down.
All right.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
No worries.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.